John Anderson, a solitary retired teacher, lived in a small apartment in New York City. He had never married and had no friends or family. His only companions were the walls of books and lesson plans he had once been passionate about. The diagnosis of late-stage lung cancer forced him into the hospital, making his already lonely life even heavier. John always wore a faded brown sweater and loose gray pants, walking slowly as if every step was a recollection of his past. Michael Johnson, once a high flyer on Wall Street, now lay in the same hospital due to a severe heart condition. His life had been filled with luxury cars, mansions, and endless social events, but the collapse of his family and the estrangement from his children left him to taste the loneliness behind his success. Nearing 60, Michael still maintained a meticulous appearance. His silver hair was neatly combed, and even in a hospital bed, he looked dapper in his well-tailored suit. In the hospital corridor, John and Michael met for the first time. John, with his IV stand, shuffled towards the clinic, while Michael, in a wheelchair pushed by a nurse, approached from the opposite direction. Their eyes met briefly, then quickly looked away, showing little interest in each other. In the waiting room, they unintentionally sat next to each other. John stared down at his thin, frail hands, while Michael gazed out the window at the cityscape, a heavy silence hanging between them. Occasionally, Michael would cough impatiently, while John remained even more withdrawn and distant. Soon, the doctor's office door opened, and John and Michael were called in one after the other. The doctor, with a somber expression, told John that his lung cancer had spread, leaving him with no more than 6 months to live. John nodded unemotionally, as if this was merely another chapter closing in his life. Following closely, Michael received his prognosis. The doctor explained that his heart condition was beyond surgical or medicinal control, leaving him with only a few months to live as well. Michael's mouth twitched, then he let out a resigned smile, seemingly seeing through the cruel joke of fate. Back in the waiting room, there was now a subtle change in the air between them. Michael sighed and broke the silence. "Looks like we both got a death sentence." John looked up, a flicker of sympathy and understanding in his eyes, and nodded. Back in their rooms, Michael pondered deeply. A few hours later, he found John, his eyes gleaming with a new light. "John, I know we don't have much time left, but we can make the most of it. Let's do all the things we've always wanted to, but never did. How about making a bucket list?" John frowned slightly, looking hesitant. "I've never even thought about wishes in my entire life," he said. "Well, now's the time," Michael said firmly. "We can complete each item on the list together, whether it's crazy or ordinary. Let's really live in our final days." John looked at Michael, seeing both fear of the unknown and a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He slowly nodded. "All right, let's give it a try." Michael smiled, a genuine smile he hadn't shown in a long time, and patted John on the shoulder. "Then starting tomorrow, let's write our list. We still have time to make the most of it." John managed a small smile, too. Although it was a bit forced, it was the first time in a long while that he felt a spark of warmth and hope. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the hospital window, casting a warm glow on the white bed sheets. John and Michael sat in John's hospital room, a notebook and pen on the table between them. Michael spoke first. "All right, John, let's get started. We need to write down everything we want to do, no matter how crazy." John hesitated for a moment, but eventually took the pen. On the blank page, he wrote the first wish: skydiving. "Skydiving?" Michael raised an eyebrow. "Nice choice. I've always wanted to try that too." He took the pen and wrote the second wish: watch a sunrise. John smiled. "That sounds nice. I haven't watched a sunrise in a long time." They continued writing their wishes: reconcile with estranged family members, try new foods, travel abroad, Each wish represented an unfulfilled dream and an adventure they had yet to experience. "All right," Michael said. "We should start with something simple so the doctors don't catch us sneaking out. How about trying new food first?" John nodded. "I know a famous Thai restaurant in the city center. We can go there." With that, they carefully planned their escape. They changed into regular clothes, avoided the nurses' rounds, and quietly slipped out of their rooms, down the corridor, and out of the hospital. The bustling streets of the city center made them feel young again. They walked into the Thai restaurant, and the exotic aromas filled them with excitement and curiosity. "Welcome," a smiling server greeted them and led them to a window seat. John looked at the menu, feeling a bit overwhelmed. Michael, full of anticipation, asked, "I've never had Thai food before, John. What do you recommend?" John chuckled. "I'm not sure either, but we can try Thai curry and tom yum soup. I've heard they're the specialties." The food arrived, looking and smelling delicious. John carefully tasted the curry, the spicy flavor making him wince slightly before he smiled. Not bad. A bit spicy, but delicious. Michael tried the soup, nodding appreciatively. "This soup has a unique sour and spicy taste. It's quite special." During this meal, they opened up to each other for the first time, sharing their stories and regrets. John spoke of his lonely life, how he once loved a woman but lost her due to his hesitation and fear. Michael talked about his brilliant career and broken family, how his success brought wealth but took away his family. "You know, John," Michael said, "I always thought that being successful in my career was everything, but in the end, I realized I neglected the most important things." John nodded, a tear glistening in his eye. "Yes, I spent my life chasing superficial things, forgetting what truly matters." This meal not only introduced them to new flavors, but also allowed them to find a deeper connection and comfort in each other's stories. In this Thai restaurant, they didn't just check off an item on their bucket list, they began a profound friendship that would carry them through the days ahead. Since they fulfilled their first wish of trying new food, the bond between John and Michael grew stronger. They decided to complete at least one wish from their list every week, not just to experience the adventures they had missed, but also to find meaning in life through each other's company. A week later, they found themselves at a skydiving center in the outskirts of New York State. John stared at the towering plane before them, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. "Are you sure we want to do this?" John asked, his voice trembling slightly. Michael chuckled and patted him on the shoulder. "This is on our list, John, and besides, it's going to be an unforgettable experience." They donned their skydiving suits and received a brief training session from the instructor. As the plane ascended, John clutched Michael's hand, his heart racing. "Relax, John. We'll be fine," Michael reassured him, although there was a hint of anxiety in his own eyes. As the plane reached the designated altitude, the door opened, and the wind roared around them. The instructor signaled them to get ready. John and Michael exchanged a look, encouraging each other. 3, 2, 1, jump! They leapt out of the plane simultaneously, instantly feeling the rush of free fall. The wind whipped past their ears, and the ground rushed up to meet them. In that moment, they felt the thrill of life's limits and the boundless freedom. When the parachutes deployed, they gently floated down to the ground, their hearts filled with an indescribable exhilaration and joy. After landing, John couldn't help but laugh out loud. "That was incredible." "I told you we need these adventures," Michael said, grinning as they shared a victorious smile. A few days later, they decided to fulfill another wish, watching the sunrise on the beach. They chose a serene beach in Long Island, carrying tents and sleeping bags, setting up camp amidst the night breeze. In the early hours of the morning, the sky gradually lightened with a faint glow. They sat on the beach, waiting in silence for the sunrise. "You know, John," Michael said, "I never took the time to watch a sunrise like this. I was always too busy with work, missing out on these beautiful moments." John nodded, smiling. I used to think these simple things didn't matter, but now I realize their true value. As the sun slowly rose above the horizon, its golden rays spread across the beach, and the gentle waves lapped at the shore, telling stories of time. This is truly beautiful, John remarked. We should cherish more of these simple and wonderful moments. Absolutely, Michael agreed. These are the things that really matter in life. Having completed a few wishes, John and Michael decided it was time to face the most significant item on their list, reconciling with estranged family members. Michael decided to find his son, whom he had not contacted in years. Meanwhile, John was also searching for his long-lost sister. After extensive efforts, he finally found her contact information and summoned the courage to make the call. "Hello?" John's voice quivered. There was a brief silence before a familiar yet distant voice responded. "John, is that you?" "Yes, it's me. I've missed you. I hope we can meet and talk." Eventually, John and his sister arranged a time and place to meet. Despite the anxiety in his heart, he knew this was the only chance to mend their relationship. Michael stood nervously in front of his son's house, his heart filled with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. John stood behind him, gently patting his shoulder. "Relax, Michael. This is just the first step." The door slowly opened, and Michael's son, James, appeared in the doorway. Their eyes met, and the air between them was thick with unresolved emotions and tension. "Dad," James said, his voice stiff, "come in." Michael walked into the living room, taking in the familiar yet distant surroundings. They sat on the couch, silent for a few minutes, unsure of how to begin. "James, I know I made a lot of mistakes," Michael finally spoke. "I neglected you and your mother. I'm sorry." A flicker of anger and sadness passed through James's eyes. "Do you know, Dad, I always wanted you to be there for me. But you were always too busy with work, never caring about how we felt." Michael took a deep breath, his eyes filled with regret. "I can't change the past, but I want a chance to make things right. Whether you forgive me or not, I'll do my best." John stood quietly by, offering silent support to Michael. After a while, James's demeanor softened. They began reminiscing about the good times they had shared, and the tension gradually eased. A few days later, Michael and James attended a family gathering together. Long-lost relatives gathered, filling the room with laughter and warmth. Michael watched his son interact joyfully with the family, his heart swelling with gratitude and contentment. "Thank you for giving me this chance," Michael said to James. "I hope we can start over," James replied with a smile. Meanwhile, John was preparing to meet his long-lost sister, Susan. They arranged to meet at a cafe, and John arrived early, feeling a mixture of nerves and hope. When Susan walked into the cafe, John stood up to greet her. "Susan, I'm so glad you came." Susan looked somewhat distant. "John, after all these years, why did you suddenly reach out to me? Is there something you need?" "I just want to reconnect. I'm really sorry for the past," John said sincerely. Susan remained silent for a while, then shook her head. "Some wounds take time to heal, John. I need time to process all this." The meeting didn't go as well as John had hoped, leaving him feeling disheartened. But he refused to give up. Determined to mend their relationship, he decided to try again. With Michael's encouragement and support, John wrote a long letter to Susan, expressing his deep apologies and longing for reconciliation. A few days later, John received a letter back from Susan. Their relationship had begun to thaw. John felt a wave of relief, knowing this was a crucial step in repairing their bond. John and Michael finally completed the last item on their bucket list, traveling abroad. They chose Europe, the place they had both dreamed of visiting. In Paris, they climbed the Eiffel Tower and marveled at the breathtaking view of the city. "This is so beautiful. I never imagined I'd see this with my own eyes," John said. Michael smiled, nodding. We did it, John. Each wish makes us cherish every moment even more. They visited Rome, exploring the ancient Colosseum. In Venice, they rode a gondola through the stunning canals. In Amsterdam, they strolled along the serene canals, soaking in the peaceful atmosphere. Each destination left a mark on their hearts, filled with their laughter and the profound friendship that grew stronger with every adventure. They found joy and love in the simple things, realizing that these moments defined the true essence of life. After their European adventure, John and Michael returned to New York. However, the good times didn't last long as John's condition suddenly worsened. He was admitted back to the hospital, his body growing weaker and his breathing more labored. Michael remained steadfast by John's bedside, constantly encouraging him. "Hang in there, John. We've come so far, and there are still so many people who need you." John smiled weakly and nodded, but the exhaustion in his eyes was unmistakable. During John's decline, Susan visited frequently. Her initial coldness gradually warmed into genuine care. One day, as Susan sat by John's bedside, she gently took his hand. "John, I'm glad we reconnected. I'm sorry for holding a grudge all these years." Tears glistened in John's eyes. "No, Susan, it's I who should apologize. I neglected you in the past. I hope you can forgive me." Susan nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. "We both need time to heal, but I want to spend this time with you." John closed his eyes with a serene smile, feeling a peace he had never known before. Despite knowing his own time was limited, Michael stayed by John's side, offering him emotional support. They reminisced about their past adventures and the wishes they had fulfilled, cherishing those precious moments. On John's last day, Michael sat by his bedside, notebook in hand, writing down their story. He hoped it would inspire others to treasure life and their relationships. "John, this isn't just our story. I want it to help others understand the true meaning of life," Michael said softly. John looked at Michael with gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you, Michael. You made my last days truly meaningful." On a sunny morning, John passed away peacefully, a content smile on his face. Michael held his hand, feeling a mix of sorrow and gratitude for the friendship they had shared. A few days later, Michael's own health began to fail, but he felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. He knew his time was near, but he no longer feared it. He had found life's true purpose. In his final days, Michael compiled their story into a book and gave it to Susan. He hoped it would be published, allowing their experiences and insights to reach a wider audience. Michael passed away in tranquility, carrying with him the love and friendship he had shared with John. Their story, shared through books and the internet, touched countless hearts. Their bucket list was more than just a list. It was a journey filled with courage, love, and friendship. It taught people to cherish every moment, to pursue their dreams fearlessly, to reconcile with loved ones, and to savor the simple joys of life. In John and Michael's story, every reader found courage and hope, learning how to live a full and meaningful life within the limited time they had.